The topic of unconscious bias in the workplace has grabbed headlines and worried corporate leaders in recent months. Research shows that women make up only 1/5 of leadership positions at tech firms, and non-Asian minorities make up even fewer. Data that some tech firms have shared publicly, but few tech firms have actually learned how to fix despite high-profile efforts. Even large tech companies, renowned for their forward thinking, can have challenges. For example, aggregated research shows that 22.5% of leadership positions in tech are women, and women make up only 15.6% of individual contributors. Counterintuitively, a report by Mary Curtis from Credit Suisse found that companies with women directors outperformed their counterparts when it came to returns on equity, average growth, and price-to-book value multiples. Evidence reported by McKinsey & Company and Thomson Reuters backs up the same idea. Employing women can only be a good thing for the economy because, as Newsweek reported in 2010, women are the biggest emerging market in the history of the planet. Why is there such a strong disconnect in industry, and what can we do to change our unconscious bias in order to create a more diverse and successful workplace? First, we need to understand what unconscious bias looks like. Here's a video from McKinsey & Company. Now that we know the basic appearance of unconscious bias, we can look into what the actual mechanics of bias are. Our brains have an implicit processor and an explicit processor. One is the part of the brain that makes fast, impulsive decisions that we're almost entirely unaware of, like running when a lion is about to attack. The other is our more rational self, the smart lawyer uncle of the implicit processor, and it uses analytical problem-solving and logic to make slow and deliberate decisions. When you meet someone, say, for a job interview, your implicit processor is going to start categorizing everything it notices about the prospective employee, and then, based on those observations, you will unconsciously compare the candidate to your impressions from past experiences. Ultimately, you will end up preferring a candidate that comes across as more familiar. This extremely rapid judgment becomes a problem when your implicit processor is more attuned to stereotypes than objective facts. And believe it or not, there are more than just internal stereotypes altering our perception. There's research showing that an inch of height is worth up to $789 per year. Candidates interviewed on rainy days score lower than their sunny weather competitors. Black job applicants with a clean criminal record are less likely to get a job than a white applicant with a felony on their record. And even the defendants going on trial after a judge has just eaten have a better chance of getting a favorable ruling. It's easy to see how unconscious bias can be dangerously tricky. The next step is to realize that we need to do more than just notice it. We need to make changes in how we perceive ourselves and our colleagues. Don't feel guilty about your actions, instead, adjust your behavior. This can be done through an implicit association test. You can also ask yourself what unconscious biases you might have every time you experience a distinctively positive or negative first impression of someone you just met. Remove non-essential information such as a candidate's name, school, and age that might induce bias, and rely on facts to make assessments. Reduce your own biases by getting to know people from a stigmatized group. Make a point of talking to people who don't look and act like you to get a broader perspective. Our stereotypes tend to weaken when we take the time to get to know people based on their individual characteristics instead of how they're stereotyped. Encourage your team members to participate in unconscious bias training. A common language and understanding will make it easier to have honest and non-defensive conversations about biases. Hold one another accountable for noticing and calling out biases. And finally, collect data on where unconscious bias may be creating imbalance in the workplace, because after all, we can't improve unless we can measure our efforts. Using these ideas, tracking data, inserting checks and balances in all stages of the process, and staying objective, we can create a fair environment for hiring, retaining, and promoting employees. We can create a workplace that treats employees equally without interference of unconscious bias.